Welcome to the Telex Radio Dispatch IP224 IP Gateway Firmware version 1.3 and Telex System Manager 1.6 updates video. First released in 2012, the IP224 has become a successful replacement to our industry standard IP223, which first was introduced in 2002. Firmware version 1.3 will add the following: Motorola Moto Turbo interface. This will support additional features and can be a direct interface to the mobile that does not require the MTRBI. Sprint Direct Connect or SDC interface for push-to-talk over cellular, a secondary Ethernet port supporting auto failover connectivity, and expanded serial control functions. The new Motorola Moto Turbo interface for the IP224 directly connects to the XPR 4550 and 5550 mobiles, supporting either analog, digital, Capacity Plus, Linked Capacity Plus, and now Connect Plus formats. The features supported include private or group calls, radio check, monitor, radio enable and disable, call alert, text message send, and now receive has been added. GPS and zone channel read and emergency acknowledge are supported. Connect Plus would require a third-party application for text and GPS functions. The Moto Turbo interface does have a limitation of only one per IP224. This is due to USB COM port requirements by the mobile radio. The other line of the 224 is still functional and can control another radio or Moto Turbo using the MTRBI. The Moto Turbo interface is licensed in the IP224 using a hash code and is based on the unit's serial number. This option is available either as a factory or field-installed option and includes a cable. This release also supports Sprint Direct Connect or SDC. The IP224 interfaces to the Advanced Bridge Cellular Modem by AdvancedTech, supporting features like Direct Connect, Team DC or Group Call, emergency, and call alerts, which are based on a status message number. During the IP224 startup, communications with the Advanced Bridge provides information on RSSI values and the volume settings in the modem. The ability to reset or change the volume settings on the modem are accomplished on the IP224 system status webpage. The SDC interface is licensed in the IP224 using a hash code and is based on the unit serial number. This is available either as a factory or field-installed option. The interface cable is supplied with the Advanced Bridge modem. 1.3 also enabled the second Ethernet port and supports an auto failover function that works like this. The IP224 selects the primary port at power-up, but when the feature is enabled, the unit monitors the link status on the port, checking once per second. If the Ethernet link is lost, the unit switches to the secondary Ethernet port. The unit will continue using the secondary Ethernet port until the link on that port is lost. The port selection is changed via the web page or display, or when the unit is rebooted. The active Ethernet port can be switched via the web page or via the front panel display menu. The active port can be changed regardless of the auto failover enabled settings. The System Status tab on the web page view has a field for displaying which Ethernet port is currently active. Improvements were made in the IP224 code to match CSOF 6.5 release. This is in regards to serial control communications with Kenwood radios. Enhanced NXDN protocol features include cell call, individual and group calls, radio disable enable, send console status, request radio status, and remote monitor. For FleetSync series radios, the new features include cell call, individual and group calls, radio enable disable, send console status, request radio status, and remote monitor for the TK5710 or 5X10 series digital P25 trunked protocol radios. Other software improvements or fixes include the following. Various improvements to the IP224 and EF Johnson interface were made that affect lost serial control during fast channel changes and PTT commands, or when switching between SmartNet, SmartZone, Multinet, or P25 trunking channels. Also fixed was during scanning operations, the IP224 and EF Johnson radio TX channels would get out of sync, along with improvements to serially decoded MDC 1200 from the EF Johnson radio. The IP224 wasn't sending CSOF the correct group ID for over-the-air FleetSync and MDC 1200 group calls. This has been fixed. Channel updates weren't being sent reliably to IP consoles while in scanning mode when using serially controlled Kenwood TK5X10 operating in P25 mode. Kenwood NextEdge NXDN user ID and calling IDs were swapped and now corrected. Group IDs weren't always sent to IP consoles for Kenwood serial-controlled radios. FleetSync functions for decode of text messages weren't always sent correctly to Seesaw. Tone mode, frequency changes were not being muted from the RX audio in two-wire mode. Radio and CSoft encryption button states would get out of sync. Please refer to the 1.3 firmware release notes for more detailed description on other small changes not listed here. Let's look at the Telex System Manager 1.6 improvements. This version of Telex System Manager adds the ability to select which LAN port will be used for product queries. The drop-down is found in the Tools tab, Options section. The ability to check all or uncheck all devices in the filter menu has been added. In prior releases, you would have to select each one individually to add or subtract. Other software fixes include changes for the IP223. Firmware updates will now time out with an error message if the IP223 FTP server fails to start. On the per line setup tab, we added a cell call min PTT field and support for the power trunk tetra serial type mode. Increase the maximum allowed value for the RX and TX delays, plus changes to the monitor relay time. Scan list checkbox can now be enabled when either the Kenwood 5X10 or NextEdge mobiles are selected as the active serial type mode. In the SOIP setup tab, we fixed an issue where SOIP mode was not being correctly enabled on the IP223 after being configured using TSM. For the IP224, you'll find the following changes. Ethernet setup, we added support for the secondary Ethernet port and Ethernet auto failover configuration. Gain setup tab, renamed the TX voice field to TX IP input to match the web page. On the multicast setup tab, added support for the Moto Turbo interface and Sprint Direct Connect serial types. Maximum length of a line name was reduced from 19 to 9 characters to match the web page length. On the per line setup tab, we added a cell call min PTT field and emergency status 1 and 2 fields. This would be used for receiving a configuration status in Sprint Direct Connect. Increase the maximum allowed value for RX and TX delays and for the monitor relay time. RX AGC checkbox was removed after the feature was relocated to the gain setup page. Hopefully this video on IP224 and TSM version updates has been helpful, and look forward to providing you with some more videos on future upgrades and improvements.
Bosch, invented for life.